My sister and I are conjoined twins and can't stop fighting. Have you ever been super annoyed with a brother or sister? I bet in those moments you just walked away from them, maybe slammed the door of your room as you went in there to get away from them. Imagine what it would be like if you didn't have the option to leave that person who was annoying you. Imagine if that person was with you every single minute of every single day. Imagine you had to sleep with them, eat with them, go to the bathroom in front of them. It's hard to understand, but that's what life is like when you're one part of a conjoined twin set. My sister and I had been born conjoined, and surgery was just too risky while we were still growing. Not to mention, some of our organs were conjoined too, which made things super complicated in terms of surgery. My sister and I used to get along pretty well as can be expected. As we entered the teenage years, we started to want really different things. We had different tastes in clothing and music and had to take turns with all of that stuff. We were homeschooled for obvious reasons. I didn't really have any friends either. We tried. When one of us made a friend, it seemed like the other didn't like them, and then it would be just too difficult to hang out. Our first big fights were about music. I liked country, and Sarah liked top 40. We set a timer and would alternate the radio stations or CDs we listened to. Sarah was sneaky, though, and often tried to pretend she didn't hear the timer when it was my turn to pick the tunes. Our next biggest fight was about clothes. We had to have our clothes adjusted and altered professionally, also for obvious reasons. Deciding what to wear in the morning was pretty challenging, too. Sarah was all about trying to be sexy, but I just thought, what's the point? She would sit for hours in front of the mirror perfecting her makeup skills, and it was torture having to sit there too. I would read my book and she would make fun of how nerdy I was and that maybe I should try putting some effort into my appearance. Again, I just thought, what's the point? I ignored her a lot of the time. Sarah was the happier one, the louder one, the one people seemed to like more. I was quiet and liked to read. I didn't really care about interacting with people and felt like we just made them uncomfortable anyway. As we approached our 19th birthday, things started to get particularly hard. We were sitting on the front lawn on a nice summer's day, at Sarah's insistence, and had met our flyer boy. He was cute, I must admit. We had seen him from our window, and Sarah had a bee in her bonnet about meeting him for quite some time. "Don't you dare embarrass me," she said as he came closer. The flyer boy's name was Finn, and he was so nice and friendly. He asked how we both were, introduced himself to both of us, and asked if we drove each other nuts. We laughed at that. No one ever really made jokes with us. They were just too fixated on trying to say the right things and not offend one or both of us. He sat on the grass with us, and I had to listen and watch as Sarah flirted shamelessly with him. I had brought my book out with us and pulled it out. I did this because I assumed he was only interested in talking to Sarah anyway, and I didn't want her getting mad at me later, saying I was cramping her style. To my surprise, Finn said, "Oh, you like Cornwell? I love his stuff. What did you think of his last series?" I was stunned. No one read Cornwell. He was an Arthurian writer I had discovered through my dad, who was an English teacher. Most adults hadn't even read him, let alone a teenage boy. I couldn't help but respond enthusiastically, and to that, Sarah just rolled her eyes and tried desperately to get the conversation back to an area she was comfortable with. It was clear that Finn and I had more in common, and I could tell it was making Sarah's blood boil. She was mad. If there was one thing she couldn't stand, it was being overshadowed by her plain Jane twin. When Finn said he had better continue on with his route, Sarah started to stand abruptly. Now, you won't get this, but for conjoined twins, the effort to stand had to be combined. Sarah standing quickly forced me to allow myself to be pulled up, but it wasn't pleasant. and Sarah knew exactly what she was doing. She marched us into the house and started screaming at me. She asked me how I could steal her thunder like that, and all I could think to say was, "Oh, I know, that must be confusing as it's your move normally." I wanted so badly to yell at her to leave me alone and storm off, but that wasn't a possibility. We had our worst ever screaming match, and it went on for hours. Our parents were getting worried. Every time we fought, I could see those looks of, "What can we do about this?" flicker across their faces. The following week on Flyer Day, I asked Sarah if we could go outside and talk to Finn again. She was a total mean girl. It was okay that I was dragged everywhere for her, but for the first time, I had something for myself that she didn't, and she couldn't stand it. Instead, she plopped down on the couch, pulling me down with her and said, "It's too cold out today. I want to stay in." "It's 18 degrees outside," I said. "Please, Sarah, think of all the times I did stuff like this for you." She wouldn't budge, and I made the promise to myself that I wasn't going to let her take advantage of me again. I was angry that I missed the chance to talk to Finn, and was shocked when there was a timid knock on the door. My dad answered it and called out, "Trina, there's someone here to see you." I tried to stand, but Sarah wasn't cooperating. My dad came in at that moment, thankfully, and told Sarah to smarten up. She had to stand, and we walked to where Finn was standing in the entranceway. He asked me if I had gotten the new Cornwall book that had come out. I told him I hadn't, but was excited to read it. He produced a copy from his bag and said he picked up an extra one for me. I was so touched, I didn't quite know what to say. As he was leaving, he turned around and awkwardly asked if we could talk on the phone sometime. I gave him our number, but wondered how on earth I could have a conversation with him with Sarah staring daggers at me. As soon as Finn left, Sarah started yelling at me again. She criticized me for everything I had said and done while Finn was there, and she said she had no idea why he even liked me. I tried to choke back the tears, but she knew just what to say to press my buttons. My dad came in again and asked what was going on with us. He and my mom were worried by how much we were fighting, but what could we do? We never got a break from each other, and it was taking its toll. I explained this, and Sarah agreed. "Well, we're happy to see you two actually agree on something," my mom said. They exchanged hesitant looks, but said they had something major to talk to us about. They had gone in to see a surgeon that week to talk about the possibility of surgery to separate us. We had reached that age where our bodies were no longer growing. We had come through puberty and all our major growth spurts together, and were now officially adults. We both wanted nothing more than the chance to live a normal life unattached to someone else. We both started crying at even the thought. The next day, we all went in to talk to the surgeon about everything. He said they would have to do a whole bunch of scans to know what they were dealing with. We shared a liver, but other than that, had our own organs, which was good. As livers could regenerate, the doctors thought that if I was to give Sarah a chunk of mine, we could be separated. So the big plan started. We were started on medications to prep us for surgery and had countless tests and scans performed. The night before we were scheduled for surgery, Sarah and I stayed up most of the night talking. We talked about what life would be like apart, and we laughed at how nice it would be to be able to go to the washroom alone. The next morning, we all piled into the car, all aflutter with excitement. Today, our lives were going to be changed forever.
To watch more animated story videos like this, hit that subscribe button. And tell us in the comments section what you thought about this story.